Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I have some exciting news to share. Last week, I got an email in my inbox letting us know that we've hit 500,000 downloads since the podcast has started a few years ago. I am so excited to share this news with you. Honestly, it has been your support that has kept us going these past few years, and I couldn't have done it without you. I still remember a few summers ago when I started the podcast, my idea was maybe we'll do 25 episodes, and if it turns out terrible, we'll just delete it off the face of the internet. Nobody ever needs to know. I'm really humbled by your dedication, your sincerity and hard work to stay on this path. I mean, we know teaching yoga is rewarding, and at the same time, it is such a frustrating journey sometimes. And I applaud you. It is so wonderful to see your effort. And when I look back at these years of the podcast, what is really special to me are two things: the community, the invisible community that we've created over the years, and the conversation with the wonderful, forever giving guests that we have on the show. I've always wanted the podcast to outlive me and to be a timeless resource. So even if 50 years later, somebody is listening to an episode, they still have value in it to elevate how we operate as yoga teachers, to make yoga a bigger and better part of our lives, as well as our students' lives. And I think we are slowly inching forward towards that goal with your support. I am so happy to share this update with you. It is all because of you and the guests coming back week after week. So yeah, that's 500,000 downloads, 500,000 attempts at trying to do better as yoga students and yoga teachers. Beyond grateful. I don't think I have words to really express what I feel on the inside. So thank you. And apart from that, things here have been looking pretty good. I am now 4 months post-op with my new ACL reconstruction. Recovery is going well. I have been a little slow on the podcast because recovery has been time consuming. After 6 weeks of surgery, I jumped back into classes, dance, yoga, everything, and resumed everything at a full schedule. Kept doing rehab. My rehab will go on for another till the end of the year at least. So that's been keeping me pretty busy. It is always harder for me to get guests during summer. You'll notice it if you remember from last year too, this time. Guests are usually busier during summer. So if you notice there's a week or two where we don't drop an episode, it just means that I'm scheduling guests based on their availability. Having said that, we have another one lined up for next week. This one is going to be a solo episode. I just wanted to quickly get in here and have a quick word with you because I feel like it's been a while since we've done that. Summer here is going great. June has been an amazing month for me personally. One of my best friends from India visited. We spent some really good time together after years. So that was great. Seeing him was amazing. I had some other friends come by as well, one of whom I haven't seen in 11 years. So personally, it's been very fulfilling. Work has been great. The sun is shining in Seattle. Munch is going to turn 6 in July. What else? Yeah, dance is going great. My dance studio, Bollyworks, turns 10. By the time you listen to it, we would have finished celebrating our 10th anniversary. Tomorrow, as I record this, it's Wednesday. Thursday is when we turn 10. And I cannot believe it's been a decade of Bollyworks and 20 years of dancing. So yeah, that's pretty much it from my end. As always, if you come back here week after week with curiosity, you're looking to learn something, you found value in the previous episodes, please take a moment to rate and review the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. It's the only way we can keep this podcast ad-free. For the past many years, we've been eligible for sponsors and ads, but I have deliberately not been going in that direction because I want you to just get unfiltered, unadulterated yoga content when you come on here. I hope to keep it that way. And the way I can do that is if we increase our reach by you sharing, rating, and reviewing this podcast. It really means a lot. From back here behind my microphone, it's an invisible experience. Okay? The virtual community is largely invisible, but I know you guys are out there and I thank you for your support. Today's episode is going to be something that was impromptu. I had not decided to make this an actual episode, but I'll tell you more on the other side.
Hi, my name is Arundhati, and you're listening to the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. I'm an ex-Bollywood dancer turned yoga and wellness educator. I've built a six-figure business as an immigrant, woman of color yoga teacher with no business background, no handstands, pure instinct, and the free information found on Google. If you love doing yoga and you dream of teaching it someday, this podcast is for you. We go over everything from doing and teaching yoga to scaling a small business, living a modern yoga lifestyle, and so much more. You'll find interesting, fun, raw conversations along with some tips, tricks, strategies, and insights in this podcast. So grab your cup of chai and let's jump in.
Welcome back. And if you're a new listener, welcome to the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. In today's solo episode, we're going to talk about the many ways in which we can fail as yoga teachers. I made a post on Instagram this morning, and I recognize that a lot of you are not even on Instagram and you may miss it. And I wanted to also add a little more context to the things I've said here. So I'm jumping on to record this very impromptu solo short episode. We're going to be looking at 10 ways that yoga teachers fail. I might throw in a few bonus ones as well. I want us to laugh together, shed a tear as needed, because honestly, we've all been here and we've been there and done that at some point. These 10 points are not necessarily to point out things you have done or missteps we have taken, but it's more awareness, just being aware of, hey, these are traps for me and I need to avoid them. I really wish somebody had told me a lot of these things when I started teaching yoga. So bringing you 10 ways to fail as a yoga teacher. Okay, so let's get started. These are in no particular order. I want you to think of this as a much more lighthearted episode, a more reflective episode. Okay, so the first one is thinking that teaching yoga is the answer to all your life problems. Now, honestly, I've met yoga teachers who want to teach yoga because they are healing in some other part of their life. And I say this with compassion. I say it with kindness and respect. Yoga cannot fix parts of your life that need attention and support from other areas. Okay. Yoga can definitely help be a tool of your healing journey, but teaching yoga, becoming a yoga teacher, standing in front of that room and sharing this wisdom of yoga is not the answer to all our life problems. So if you feel like yoga, it was meant to fix something in your life, it was the solution, it was the answer, it was the calling you were looking for, but it's not going the way you anticipated it would, then maybe some other area of your life needs a little more attention and re-examining, because teaching yoga is not a solution to our life problems. It's not a ticket to anywhere, to be very honest. Teaching yoga is a sincere effort, and it's a responsibility. And there is a certain way in which you have to offer yoga to others. So just remember that you cannot use it as a balm to just numb yourself off or not pay attention to other aspects of your life. It's a tool. It's definitely a tool for healing in many ways. But teaching it is a different conversation. So the first reason why yoga teachers fail is that we think that teaching yoga is the answer to all our life problems. The second reason is we think teaching yoga is easy. I really wish this were the case, but it's not, because if it were, we'd all be super successful. We wouldn't have this podcast. We wouldn't be having these conversations. We wouldn't be needing any of this. But teaching yoga, in fact, is like any other job in many ways. It requires time, dedication, patience, hard work, discipline, ambition, and a drive to do more and be better. So it's maybe doing a yoga class, an asana class is easy, but teaching a class, teaching yoga, that is a different skill set. Okay, so remember that even though some of us may have thought initially teaching yoga is easy, it is not. It's usually an epiphany most teacher trainees have at the end of their training when they're graduating and working on their teaching skills. So teaching yoga is not easy. Doing some aspects of yoga may come more effortlessly to you. The third reason why yoga teachers fail is that we think that for our yoga to matter, and I'm doing matter in air quotes, I know you can't see me, we have to teach only at a commercial yoga studio or extend that to gyms or anything very visible, a very visible public platform. You can absolutely teach in non-commercial yoga places. In fact, most of my teacher trainees over the past decade, they teach their neighborhood. Some of them teach the kids in their street. Some of them teach their friends at work. You do not have to ever enter a yoga studio for your yoga teaching journey to count. Okay, some of them just teach on Zoom. Some of them don't even teach. So just remember that because you don't teach at a yoga studio or some streaming platform, it doesn't mean your yoga teaching is any less. Okay, so there is this notion that our yoga needs to be visible. It doesn't. Okay, it absolutely doesn't. So just remember that your yoga teaching matters, even if you're teaching your spouse at home, your partner, your friend, or someone on Zoom, it is equally valid. Okay, I do have a blog post that I will get linked in the show notes for you, 10 unconventional places to teach yoga at. I believe we also did a podcast about this. So we'll link all of that in the show notes if you're curious to explore more places to teach. Okay. The next reason number 4, why yoga teachers fail is because we wait for the right moment to start teaching yoga. And again, I'm doing air quotes for start teaching. Now, you know, I've been learning to swim off late and I'm trying to paddleboard this summer. So it's like me trying to stand outside the swimming pool and trying to learn to swim without ever getting into the water. Okay. Honestly, it's really not possible. It's similar with yoga. You have to be in the trenches. You have to be in class to get better. You can't ever stand on the outside and wait for the right moment because you'll be waiting a very long time. A lot of yoga learning, teaching skill sets get better when you're in class, working through it, repeating it, doing it again and again, working with a mentor. So I've met teachers who wait for so long that eventually they never start teaching. Okay. If you feel like you have reasonably picked up some skills, then don't wait for the right moment. The right moment is now. Okay. If you're really practicing yoga, everything is only about the present moment, isn't it? So don't wait for the time when you will be perfect in everything and your students will be perfect. Begin with what you have and work with what you have. That is really where the magic lies. Okay. Reason number 5, why yoga teachers fail is that we think that we need to make everyone love us and like yoga. I'm going to say that again because for me, this is one of the most important points. Okay? The reason why yoga teachers fail is because we think we need to make everyone love us and like yoga. And to be very honest, you and I are not even part of that equation. Okay. All we need to do is focus on making people like yoga, love yoga. You are just a messenger. I am just a messenger. Okay. It's really not about us. So often we think that our students need to like us, love us. No, our students need to just fall in love with yoga. And if they can do that, if you can facilitate that, your job is done. Okay. So remember, we don't need to make everybody love us and like yoga. In fact, I would say it should be the other way around. They should love yoga and perhaps like you. Okay. The next one is we often fail because we focus only on the visible aspects of yoga. For example, only asanas. And we don't focus enough on the invisible parts of yoga, the living yoga, the reflection, the reverence, the contemplation, all the yamas, niyamas. There's so much there, right? But I'm not really going to go too deep into this point because I think enough has been said on this podcast before about this topic. So just remember, you may have to teach a lot of visible yoga, but you should slowly be able to layer in the invisible yoga over time. And I would reference you back to last week's podcast or the previous podcast where Prasad and I talk about balancing the roles of being a teacher and a student. And we talk about invisible yoga in there in case you're wondering what I'm referring to. Okay. Up next, we have another very important part. If you're multitasking, I want you to come back to me on this one. We fail because we think that adaptability of asana is something you learn separately at a later point in your yoga studies. I'm going to say that again, okay? Because I think it is so important. We think that adaptability of asana is something you learn separately later as a separate course at a different point in time in your yoga studies. accessibility, adaptability of practice is something you should be learning from day one. It is not something you should be spending money on, unlearning, relearning, or even being obsessed with. It's just a part of your yoga journey from day one. Okay. So don't ever think that adaptability is something separate, something you pick up later. It should be in your yoga studies, in your trainings, in your conversations, in your thought process, and your worldview from day one. Okay. And then up next, we have something we've discussed a few times on the podcast, that we try to learn a lot of yoga, but we understand a little. What if you flip that narrative in your head? And what if you instead learned a little yoga, but you understood a lot? Okay. For me, this is one of my favorite ones in today's episode. Okay. Learn a lot of yoga. That's the mistake we make. We learn a lot of yoga and we understand a little. What if you aimed instead to learn a little yoga, but to understand a lot and to understand it deeply and really well? Okay. I think this is the crux of it all. We don't need to learn all of yoga. I've said that before. We just need to learn a little yoga. We need to learn it well. We need to learn it deeply. Okay. So instead of learning a lot of yoga and understanding a little, change that. Learn a little bit of yoga and understand it a lot. Okay. It can be a game changer for how you show up, how you think about your yoga, how you approach your teaching, and how you create impact in your students' lives. Then lastly, we have doing course after course, but being afraid to implement. I think this really needs no explanation, right? And I think this is something that happens when you're early on in your teaching journey. You think that doing more courses will help. It does have value. I'm not saying it doesn't, but recognize if you're only doing courses and not implementing any of it. Okay. And if you notice that those courses aren't giving you what you're looking for, then maybe take a pause from just buying course after course. It makes you feel like you're doing something, but sometimes it can just be a distraction and a waste of time, effort, and money. Okay. And then there are other parts of this conversation. I want you to reflect back on why you think yoga teachers fail. Feel free to write to me, comment on that Instagram post. I love to have conversations with you and see what you're thinking as a community. There are also aspects here that I haven't mentioned, like we think that yoga is glamorous. Teaching yoga, doing yoga is glamorous while it's not. We also think that just learning parts of yoga is the whole. We approach it that way, but really that's a faulty way of looking at it. Yoga teachers try to pick topics that are trendy and they try to niche down even before they have a complete understanding of what yoga is all about. There's so many reasons why we could fail. Okay. I'm sharing this with you very candidly so you catch yourself. Okay. And you don't ever think that, oh, adaptability is something I learn later. Oh, I need to have a niche for it to matter. I was leading a workshop on International Yoga Day for yoga teachers. We did this virtual meetup and we were talking about niching down in yoga. Is it necessary? And a participant so sincerely told me, I don't know what my niche is. All I know is Hatha Yoga. And it was so heartbreaking and heartwarming to hear that at the same time, because Hatha Yoga is so potent. Right. And a niche is not even a part of yoga. And we had that conversation more in depth in that workshop. But I've always believed that teaching yoga can be a very lonely journey. It can be very tricky to keep up sometimes. It's overwhelming, especially with social media and FOMO playing into it. So I'm having this conversation in the hopes that you will laugh with me, because we've all been here. We've done some silly things every now and then. We do feel insecure. But at the end of the day, we have our yoga to go back to. Okay. So these are just a few ways in which we occasionally stumble, and knowing them will help us stay 2 steps ahead. I hope that helps, my impromptu little episode for you. I have a new guest lined up for the next episode. We're going to be talking about all things sadhana and really working on making you understand the crux of it. I can't wait for you to hear that. Until next time, the newsletter goes out shortly. Make sure you are on it. I can't wait to talk to you again. And thank you for your continued support in helping us reach 500,000 downloads. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.